Hey folks, welcome to a new experimental Let's Play. We're going to be casting this game. So I'm not actually a player in this game, and I have with me Saq and I. You want to say hi, Saq and I?
Hello, everybody.
And he has been in quite a few games with me lately.
I
And so
think I've
we,
actually been on in every single one of your games except All Stars in the
yeah,
last year,
yeah. So we've
something like
been.
that.
I think we don't actually hate each other after playing 10 Dominions games together. So that must be a good sign. Though I'm sure we've tested each other's nerves.
Well, just because we're rivals in game doesn't mean we can't share our love for this game
That's true.
and appreciate all the beauty.
Yeah. So this game, we've got a bunch of new players, and the reason I wanted to kind of try out casting is to get ready for the tournament because I've already been knocked out of the tournament, and so I will be casting it.
Spoilers.
Well, anyway,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, and so anyway, I want to make sure that the omniscience mod, which is the mod that I'm using, it's all working well, and we can kind of warm up the casting system, see how it works, see how we're going to do it. Um, And so we have a bunch of new players that are in this game. So this will be kind of interesting because, like in the tournament game, the players that are playing there are going to be, some of them are going to be a lot better than me. I mean, and I got eliminated, so I didn't even make it. So presumably everybody there is going to be, very very good.
Yeah, I
Um,
have to say in our game, certainly, which my game isn't over yet, I've got a pretty good chance of making it, but it's not guaranteed. But there have been quite a few strong plays, all across. Obviously, there's a difference in skill level, but there's a lot of very strong play.
yeah,
So it's nice to see that there's a lot of good players of Dominions out there.
yeah. And so anyway, this one's going to be newer players, and this one will be giving kind of more feedback on, look at what they're doing, and we'll kind of be thinking about maybe mistakes they've made or things they could have done differently or things they do well. And the way this is going to work, we're going to try to keep the pace high. Like we're not going to pull up and go through every single thing that happens every turn because with all these players, it would be a bit overwhelming. But what we're going to do, I'm going to explain a little bit more about how the mod works. Then we're going to go through all the nations that are in here, and we'll kind of just Sack and I will talk about it. Kind of things that different people need to be thinking of based on which nations are in the game. And then we'll kind of pull up the next turn and get cracking. So one thing just about how the mod works, I am this nation here, the Omniscience Nation. We're not, you can't even click on it, right? We're not connected to any provinces. We're just completely isolated, floating here. And we have these monoliths which are unkillable and unreachable. So yeah, we're sitting here, but we have in every province a 1,000 stealth spy, which is going to allow us to see what's happening for all the battles. And if they die, they get replaced every turn. So anyway, that's going to be kind of how that works. It's basically completely invisible to the game, except it can interfere with Mind Hunt. So that is the one thing that it's going to be a slight Mind Hunt nerf having this mod on.
Lucid, I was wondering, it just occurred to me, can you use the spy commands to infiltrate to get the graphs?
We might. Yeah, we should. I should try that. They're not magic, so we won't get magic graphs, but we'll be able to get the other ones. And it may give them
Yeah.
a message, so I'd probably have to tell people we're doing it. But that's
Yeah,
definitely something we should tinker with.
we haven't thought about it, and the game currently, as we're starting this recording, is on the turn
Turn
about
20.
20 or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we can ping, like, do it every 10 turns or something, ping the graphs.
Right. And there's some things we can't see. We can see temperature scales in a province, but we cannot see the normal scales that they have. So we have to we're going to be just guessing at what scales people took. And we can't see Dominion candles. Now, I can see, I think, most all of that if I cast Eye of the Gods, which I can cast, but that's going to impact the game because it's going to take up a global spot and nobody else can cast it. So we're not going to do that. And then, later on, it will definitely impact the game because other globals could bump into it. I just don't think it's something that makes sense. So that's how the mod works. Anything you want to add, Sackney?
No, I think we should start taking a look at the different nations that are in this game. I guess we should mention that this was a map that was generated with a map nuke, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is important. It means that all the starting locations are in sort of a perfect grid, and importantly, this is actually a pretty tight map. So you are like 4 provinces away from your neighbors in all cardinal directions, which means that you can pretty comfortably get the 3 by 3 square, centered around your capital. But if you're going for that 5 by 5 square centered around your capital, because it's sort of a rectangular grid, then that's going to overlap with your neighbor. So in terms of expansion, which direction you expand in and how quick you get to those provinces that are too out from your capital is really important in setting the tone with your neighbors in the early game.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider. That this is a map. It's not a rushing map necessarily, but you're going to be close to your neighbors.
Yeah, you can't expect to kind of have plenty of time and expand when you want to and be plenty big and have peace. Oh no no. Okay,
Uh,
so for pretender, I mean for nations, what are
yeah,
I think we're gonna just go through and say some things we need to think about if we were gonna just be any nation in here. Like so,
yeah.
Sackney, what
So
are
this
things
is
we need
not
to think about
like.
for Lemuria?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say this is not like we're not going to do a nation overview to say like, oh, this is how you should play Lemuria or Ulm or whatever. We're kind of doing the opposite. Like, if you're playing a game that has Lemuria in it, what do you need to be thinking about? And we'll just do that briefly, I think, for all the nations.
Yeah, maybe we'll alternate. So you can do Lemuria, I'll do Ulm.
Okay, sure. Let's alternate. So we got Lemuria. Lemuria is very often banned, um, if only because it is a pain to play against. Because even if you win the war against them, all you get is a bunch of dead land. But it is famously a nation of ethereal ghosts, so you're going to need to have some way of dealing with undead and probably some way of having magic weapons. But it's a much more in-depth nation than that. But that's certainly something you need to consider with your build. How do I kill undead? How do I deal with ethereal things?
Yeah, and then next up we have Ulm, and so Ulm is a pretty interesting nation. They have really good crossbows, and they have wolf respawn. And then they have a fair amount of astral stuff they can do. They also have some access to Iron Blizzards, so you can have some pretty strong mid game evocation type of stuff. And then, of course, they're famous for their vampires. So it's a pretty strong late game blood power if they get there, but they're pretty strong at all phases of the game with having good crossbows and stuff. So I would say the main things you have to think about are like timing when you attack them, because you really don't want to fight late game Ulm, and dealing with like masses of pretty efficient crossbows.
And speaking of crossbows, we also have Late Age Mourinho, which also has crossbows. Marignon, in terms of its units, struggles a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how they expand. But in terms of fighting them, obviously, flaming arrows, crossbows is going to be a huge issue. And they are also a blood power in the late age. Perhaps one of the weaker nations, maybe in these nations that are currently in this game, but in the mid game, with their masses of crossbows, certainly not to be underestimated. And then they can transition into blood later on. Blood astral, I should point out, which is a
Yeah,
pretty powerful cross path.
and they have some really high tier blood summons if they get that far. And then
That's true. Unique
I think they
summons.
get good astral summons too, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, they still have the all the
Yeah,
astral angels and stuff like that. So good summons later
yeah.
on.
So I think that they're definitely a late game player if they get there, but it's a little rocky, I think.
Yeah, you might want to take them out earlier, and it won't be as hard.
Next up, we have Joman. And Joman is a nation that tends to like pretty good scales. They don't have super crazy sacreds. They have a few that are kind of okay, but the things you they also don't have a ton of archers. They have kind of these guys who are okay. They have longbows, which aren't bad, but it's basically just kind of okay troops. Where Joman really shines is they have a ton of versatility on their mages with these guys. The Onoyo however you say this, but basically they have really high magic diversity. So in the mid game or the late mid game, you can start having really like basically all the buffs on the human troops, and that's kind of one of the things, like one of their timings. And then of course they have these guys, the Ryujin, who are sacred. So if you do have some kind of blessed, these guys benefit from it. But they're absolutely nasty, and I just got crushed by Joman in a game I was in. So I'm feeling a little bit of the hurt from Ryujin, but they're really really good. Um, but this nation's a little tricky because they really want to get underwater. But if you don't take anything on your pretender, they really can't. So that is kind of going to be an interesting dynamic to see how that plays out here.
Yeah, the underwater dynamics are important with Joman, right? So there's
Yeah.
Atlantis here, but no other underwater nations. So
Right.
access to underwater might be tricky.
Yeah.
Okay, Agartha. Yeah, so late age Agartha is kind of like a lot of crossbows, but crossbows with terrible precision, and heavy human infantry, combined with sort of earth death, a bit of fire magic. Most of the time, if you are fighting Agartha, your main concern is going to be how do I deal with their crossbows, which do a bit of extra damage, but in small numbers miss everything. But in large numbers, it doesn't really matter because it's the arrows that will blot out the sun. So that typically tends to be the play from Agartha.
And they have a lot of skelly spam too.
Yeah, so this is they're gonna do skelly spam in battle, but they don't have communions and they're not gonna reanimate undead, so it's gonna be mostly chaff to put in front of their crossbows.
And they also get recruit anywhere sacreds, these guys, but these are a little wonky because they have 10 encumbrance.
Yeah, and a little expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't yet seen a successful sacred build with Lady Jagartha, but I'm always willing to be surprised.
Next, we have Abyssia, and Late Age Abyssia is kind of interesting. They get basically a lot of the Abyssias. Oh, let me make sure I'm right on this. I know they get something. No, those are cap only. I know they have something that can. Yeah, they have recruit anywhere blood mages, which is I think pretty unique for all the Abyssias. I can't remember all the Abyssian troops, but basically, it's Late Age Abyssia is the blood Abyssia. And
Yeah, it's the bloodiest of the Abyssias for sure.
right, right. And so basically, with the warlocks, they can start doing lots of horror stuff later in the game. So, and then they have all the Abyssian hellbreeding things they can do. But basically, it's just heavy infantry. They don't have any crossbows or anything. So, and they have really good fire mages. So, and they have a lot of assassins. So with Abyssia, you're really worried about assassins, fire elementals, heavy infantry, and then in the late game, blood.
Yeah, so a lot of it's pretty scary, but we're thinking about if we were fighting these nations, what do you need to bring? So so far we have Mourinho, which is going to bring some fire, and we've got Abyssia, so we definitely are thinking about some kind of fire resistance might be useful in this game.
Yeah, and then assassins too. Marignon has assassins also, so does Abyssia.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, Satis, which also has assassins. And poisoners, which are nature assassins. So late age Satis is can do sort of a undead reanimation. So if you're going to be fighting against late age Satis, you can expect some pretty serious undead hordes by the mid game. But they're a little weak in the early game. Their troops are kind of garbage, and in terms of their magic diversity, it's death, obviously, but a lot of the mages have death fire. So maybe you end up fighting like Bane Fire, which puts decay on your dudes. They are less efficient at skeleton spam in battles, but they will reanimate skeletons outside of battle. And so perhaps not one of the stronger nations in this particular group of nations. But it can get out of control like any, it's not as powerful as Scaleria, but you can end up fighting hordes and hordes of undead. So definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah, game I'm in with them right now, they just put up Well of Misery, which is when the undead faucet is about to turn on.
Oh, baby.
Okay. Okay, so next up we have Utgard. And Utgard is pretty interesting. It's very versatile, actually. It doesn't. It kind of looks like a bunch of giants, but they have Gamherdings, which can take a Hellbless, and if the Gamherdings take a Hellbless, there's a very decent chance that they can just run over you if you're their neighbor, and they are so inclined. So that's definitely something to watch out for. They also have Scrotty Thugs, so you have really heavy thugs, though they have weak MR. That's kind of their weakness. They also have Seth Kona, which are one of the better mages in the game. So basically, here we're looking at like Skelly Spam communions, Turbo communions, potentially a Hellbless Rush, Giants in the front line, and they're also a Blood Nation too. So you have to worry about that as the game goes late. And of course, they can put up everybody's favorite spell, Illwinter, which makes you basically want to just uninstall the game if you're a Heat Nation.
Yeah, it might be the best counter to Abyssia.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving along, Bogarus. So Bogarus is a very interesting, very versatile human nation. Has a lot of good magic diversity, powerful mages, including Holy Three recruitables, astral communions, air that can get into communions. So definitely some good magic potential in the mid to late game. Their main weakness is that they're just a human nation. Also, their unit lineup is average. It's not as bad as Cetis, but they don't really have like any particularly high quality units to put in front of all those nice mages. But
basically, just have this heavy cav. That's the only good unit.
They've got a heavy cav, but it's not even as good as like other heavy cav.
Yeah.
So it's but it's so as Bogarus, you'll be well equipped with your mages to deal with many other things. But if you're fighting Bogarus, you can just kind of try to muscle over them in the early game.
Yeah.
So it's human nation, kind of pretty typical human nation in that sense.
I would say this is a very high skill cap nation. Like if you're really good at the game, Bogarus really can start to shine. But in the hands of a newer player who's not really going to take advantage of the full diversity of the mages and like all the different things they can do, it's really hard.
I was going to say it feels like Tenchi, but maybe even a bit more challenging because Tenchi actually has very good units for its age.
Right. Yeah. But Bogarus has really, I think, pretty unparalleled things it can do with its mages. I mean, they are really top tier. And then it's also a Blood Nation, too. So.
Yep.
Okay. So next up we have Gath. Gath, you're playing Gath. Maybe I'll let you do Gath.
Sure. Why don't I do Gath? You do Raga. Gath is the late age version of Hinnom and Ashdod. So another very varied nation, actually similar to Utgard in the sense that we do have sacred giants. So you could take some kind of pretty nasty bless, but you also have recruit anywhere human sacreds, the Levite zealots, and the magic. But along with that, the magic diversity is actually pretty nice on this nation. You have cheap astral communions, astral nature mages. You've got some Earth Death mages, and then you have sort of recruitable Nature 2s, but you also have Blood and pretty solid access into Blood with recruitable anywhere Blood mages, and there are a few national summons, including a Blood Sacred summon called the Seir, which are pretty good, Berserker size 3 units. So if you are fighting against Gath, you can definitely expect some kind of important bless, or certainly some kind of bless. Could be rainbow, could be murder bless, could be anything. But they can field an entire army entirely made of sacreds.
Yeah. And
pretty good magic diversity to give them all the buffs that they need. So certainly a pretty strong nation to be fighting against.
Yeah. Next up, we have Raga. Raga is interesting because you can play Raga either hot or cold. In practice, everybody basically takes Raga heat, and then basically, depending on whatever the temperature scales are, it will determine what you can recruit in all your forts. So typically they'll conquer some neutral or cold nation to pick up the different cold recruits, like these guys, which you can't get obviously if you take Heat Dominion, but Heat Dominion gives you all the Blood Mages, and then most importantly, it gives you the Zidaeans, and is that right?
Zedans.
Yeah. Oh no, I was just wondering if I said it right. Not said it right. If the Zidaeans are Heat only, it doesn't say it here. I haven't. I
That's my recollection. I actually haven't played them in a very long time.
Yeah.
But that is my recollection that those are the
That's
heat
what I
sacred
thought. That's what I thought. But
versus the ice clads.
yeah, versus these guys. Yeah, I think you have to take Heat. So basically, everybody takes it because these Zidaeans are just murderous. They're so hard to deal with. They just jump on top of your back line and then kill everybody. They have so many attacks.
So yeah, these are some of the scariest sacreds in the game.
Yeah.
They're outrageously expensive, but 20 protection, 15 defense skill, and 3 attacks per, plus the lance charge.
And then if they die, they have a second form, by the way. So
right, just in case you manage to kill them. Yeah.
But then a lot of blood stuff too.
Yeah. So if you are playing in a game, if somehow Raga was not banned, other than hope you're not their neighbor, you got to be ready for Zedans attack.
Get your assassins ready.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, we have Atlantis. I guess you want to cover that?
Sure. Yeah. So Atlantis is a coastal nation in the late age. So certainly on this map generator, it means it's always going to give you maybe 5 or 6 underwater provinces, generally in your vicinity. Actually quite a strong nation. If you are fighting against them, you can expect some very high quality heavy infantry, especially in cold scales, typically the ice guards. And obviously they can go underwater very easily, and so can contest underwater from underwater nations, but also from, Joman or something like that. They will typically rush to get Stygian Rain up because they have water death cross paths. So Atlantis is going to want to stay in Cold Dominion. They're going to have very, very high protection, high quality troops. They have some. Also, another thing to look out for is they have a national-only remote assassination spell. So that's another thing that you will want to keep in mind if you have to fight Atlantis. But generally, you're going to need to fight them in some kind of heat province. Yeah. And that's kind of the key to success.
Their good mages are underwater. The thing with Atlantis is they're kind of really good troops you can only get on land, and then really good mages you can only get underwater. And then their cat mages are really good. But yeah, they have a ton of magic weapons too. So
yeah. So if we look as a summary at all of these nations that are going to be in this game, I'm seeing a fair amount of undead power here, a fair amount of blood, a lot of fire. Blood. Yeah, sure, a lot of blood, a lot of fire, not a lot of. There's some archery nations, but I'm not seeing a lot of air actually. I'm not seeing nations here that are going to spam air elementals or thunder strikes or that kind of stuff.
Bogarus, but
Bogarus would do it. Maybe that'd be the only one.
And then, I think Joman has access to it through these guys, don't they? Yeah, they can have air and communions.
Maybe, yeah.
But also, so can Marignon. Marignon has air communions too with their chart makers.
Sure. So there is air in the game, but I'm
not
thinking
like an air superpower.
Yeah. So is this? Oh, do we need to take shock resistance on our giants?
Yeah.
Maybe
lower
that's
priority.
Something. Yeah. Maybe in this game that's a lower priority. Okay.
So we're not going to read through this. Is the second turn, so everybody has gone and renamed their prophets. We have a message from Satis, so I guess I'll go ahead and read it. Notes from Dragonbait.
I guess he's kind of just narrating.
Yeah, he's narrating
his whole experience playing as Satis.
Yeah. Happy I started in a desert with enchantment 1. And then he's telling us he's going to use Empoisoners to assassinate PD. I don't think I actually get to see those battles with the scouts, or they won't pop up here.
Assassination battles.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's some types of battles where you don't see it in your messages, but if you actually go to the province where it takes place, you can sometimes hit V on it, and it'll show it to you.
Oh, we'll have to
Let's
test
see.
that. I suggest that I think the next step is going to be to look at the initial expansions and to figure out what everyone's build was. But that might take a while, and we've been going for 25 minutes. So do you want to wrap up this introduction, and we can cut it off and do another episode where we go into everyone's builds?
Yeah, let's do.
Or we can start do
I don't know if
and
we're
do a
really
couple
going to
right now.
know other people's builds. I think the builds will come as we go.
Well, we can tell from their expansion, from their bless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. Let's do that. I think when we start off the next one too, we're going to take a look at these start locations.
Yeah.
Because some people got completely screwed. I'm not going to say
Yes.
who.
Poor Bogarus.
Yeah, but like this is like just give up and sue Illwinter. It's
Well,
really
technically,
it's Map
Sue Mabnook, yeah.
Yeah, but this is what happened here. Is this was a coastal start, and Bogarus is not a coastal nation, so this should have been
Wait,
probably
where's
Joman or
okay?
Atlantis.
Let's look at these. Let's look at these start positions quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
So, all right, I'll follow you. Why don't
Okay.
you?
Yeah.
Let's
So
just go and look at everywhere. So
we'll go
Bogarus
look
got
at them. So
shafted.
Bogarus got basically the auto lose start position, being a non-coastal nation getting the coastal start position. This is actually one thing we changed. I was talking with Nuke lately, and we actually changed this. So coastal starts using Map Nuke get way fewer water provinces nearby. They'll have a few. They'll have like one or two near them, but they're not going to be anything like this anymore.
All right, moving east.
Marignan. This is about the
Also,
best you could hope for Marignan. I mean, being a coastal nation, if you actually get the coastal start, there's not too much water. And this is actually nice for them because they can like jump across over here if they want to.
yeah, Marignan is one of those nations where they're coastal just because they have sailing, but in reality, you actually don't necessarily. You'd rather just have the land for the extra cap ring.
Right.
But it's not as bad as Bogarus.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. I mean, it gives you like a one-way thing you can raid. If only it wasn't Lemuria over here.
Yeah. Lemuria actually doesn't mind having a coastal start because they can get underwater easily.
Yeah, Lemuria is actually kind of better underwater than they are on land, actually.
So,
Yeah, then we have Lemuria, who just has this wide open field of land. Well, for them, it doesn't matter, really.
yeah, exactly.
They can go on land or underwater.
And
And then
then
Atlantis,
is where Bogarus wishes they were.
yeah. Yeah, this would be okay for Bogarus. But really, the real person, where's Joman? Joman's beneath him. See, this is where Bogarus probably should have been. Down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, but
And
so
it's a
this
swamp.
it's not
Can you
bad
imagine?
for Atlantis.
Can you
They
imagine?
can
Look at
actually.
Bogarus. It's a swamp, too. I
Oh,
mean, this
jeez.
is the worst.
poor,
It's the worst.
poor dude.
We have to send him flowers or something. I mean, just
Yeah.
for staying in the game, he gets a participation award.
All right, so up here we have Satis, who got his desert wasteland start, so that's good.
Yeah, looking pretty solid. Then Abyssia.
Who got a cave start? Is that part of their? Do they like caves?
They do have dark vision on a lot of their troops. Not these guys. I thought they did. Oh, maybe it's just their Hellbreds.
Interesting. I
I
forget
think
if
their
that's
Hellbreds
a
have it, but I
if that's
guess
a
these guys
preference
don't.
for them. All right, so that's Abyssia,
Yeah, and then we have Utgard.
who's starting in a wasteland.
Yeah, it's
That
strange.
seems unfortunate.
But otherwise, a very good start for them because they've got a lot of plains nearby, which means a lot of income and a lot of places they can blood hunt.
And some decent farmlands too, not too far away.
Yeah, this is a really one of the better starts on the game. I think it sucks they're in a wasteland, but aside from that, it's like perfect.
Yeah. And east of them is Raga.
And yeah, I would say that's pretty good.
Yeah, they're going to be flying with their sacred, so they don't really care about the terrain that much.
Yeah, they typically have to. They don't really get flying movement, I think, for expansion because you basically this guy isn't a preacher, so you end up having to get one of these. I don't know if it's this one or
Right.
some other one. You have to get a mounted unit. Yeah, I think it's that guy.
Yeah,
to lead them. So anyway, they end up having strategic until you get. Now, what you can do for your first guy, and it's actually a good idea, is you can get you get one of these guys the first turn and you prophetize him, and that way he'll be able to lead a huge goon squad of Zidaeans around with divine
Yep.
blessing.
Absolutely. Okay, and then north we have Gath, who is starting in a forest. That is actually this is a terrible start for Gath, because the national blood sacred summons have to be done in a wasteland province. And so the only wasteland close to Gath is, well, there like is none.
Yeah, they basically.
So
this one, they have to conquer Lemuria.
This is an absolute awful start for Gath, or they have to completely change their strategy and be like, well, I guess we're not doing blood sacred summons. So I don't know if that was part of this player's strategy, but it is no longer part of their strategy.
It's easy, just conquer Lemuria and get this wasteland done.
Oh yeah,
He's done.
clearly.
Yeah.
So actually, that is a huge problem with this start.
Yeah, and probably what happened is this one right here. The way Map Nuke works is it generates. Basically, it does fixed starts. So it's like if you put in Utgard, it's going to give you like a good place for Utgard. Probably got this one actually. I bet you these guys switched. But then
because
we took out
you
the
randomized
fixed
it
starts
after,
so that people
right?
don't know where they're going to start. But then the Dominions algorithm comes in, and it preferentially will put people in the right spot. But then it'll sometimes mix it up. And I'm not even sure. I'm like really on the fence about it because I feel like when it mixes it up, you get crazy stuff like this.
Personally, I think it's worth sacrificing. It's worth it's more important to have a logical start, and we can also just know who our neighbors are going to be.
Yeah,
I think that ends up being better, but
a lot of people don't like that because then you can plan a rush. You can be like,
Yep.
okay, I have a really good matchup for this person. I'm just going to go straight to their cap.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so then we have Ulm, I guess, who has a pretty decent start. No complaints there. Plains.
Yeah, this is pretty damn good for Ulm.
Absolutely.
And then Agartha with a bunch of caves. So Agartha likes caves.
Agartha, great start for them.
And then they have a throne on a cave too. So I would say this is a pretty good start for Agartha.
For sure. And Jomin, who is not too far from water. So, that'll give them the possibility to get the Ryujin up.
And Gath is not going to offer too much contest for this lake system, but Atlantis, they might. So
they might, but Atlantis might, head to the east first. So we'll have to see how that develops.
Yeah. But Atlantis getting in this lake system, especially if Jomin doesn't take an Awake Expander, like a snake or something, that would be very, very bad for Jomin.
For sure.
Okay. So I think that's it for this episode. We'll see you next time with the first real turn.
All right. See you guys then. Take care.